The steady beeping of the alert system broke through the quiet hum of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station 7. Officer Tom Reed looked up from his coffee, frowning at the unusual energy readings flashing across his screen. The pattern was like nothing he had seen in his 15 years of service. "Control, this is Station 7, he called in. "I'm picking up some weird readings from Sector 445. Looks like a massive energy surge, but it's different." Within hours, the Earth Defense Fleet mobilized its response. The ESS Horizon, humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, changed course to investigate. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge, his experienced eyes studying the data streams pouring in from the ship's sensors. "What do you make of it, Dr. Allen?" he asked the ship's chief scientist. The older woman adjusted her glasses, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. "If I didn't know better, I'd say we're looking at the aftermath of a quantum event. But the scale, it's enormous." The Horizon pushed forward through the vast emptiness of space, its fusion drives humming with reliable power. As they approached the coordinates, the ship's long-range cameras began picking up unusual shapes against the backdrop of stars. "Captain," called out the sensor officer, "multiple large objects detected ahead." They're ships, sir. Hundreds of them." Walker leaned forward in his chair. "Show me." The main screen lit up with an image that made everyone on the bridge catch their breath. Scattered across a massive asteroid field were ships of incredible size and design. Their sleek hulls gleamed with a metallic sheen unlike any human-made material. But something was wrong. The ships were dark, drifting aimlessly among the rocks. "No power readings," reported the sensor officer. "Wait, detecting minimal life support systems. They're running on emergency power." Walker made his decision quickly. "Communications broadcast on all frequencies. Standard first contact protocol." For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then suddenly, a weak signal came through. The screen filled with the image of a being that looked almost human, but with subtle differences: slightly larger eyes, silvery skin, and delicate patterns across their face. "This is Ambassador Rose of the Stellar Commonwealth." The being spoke in perfect English, their translator working flawlessly. We need help." The ambassador explained their situation. The Commonwealth fleet, over 300 ships carrying 50,000 civilians, had been caught in a quantum storm. Their advanced engines, which used quantum mechanics to fold space, had been completely drained. They were stuck, their backup systems barely keeping their people alive. "Our ships were never designed to be without main power for this long," Rose explained, worry clear in their voice. "We have maybe 3 days before life support fails completely." Walker looked around his bridge. Human ships might be considered primitive by Commonwealth standards, with their fusion drives and traditional propulsion, but they were reliable. They'd worked. "Ambassador," he said, standing tall, "the Earth Defense Fleet stands ready to assist. We'll need to coordinate with Earth Council, but I promise you this, we won't let your people die out here." Relief flooded the ambassador's features. "Thank you, Captain. But forgive my directness. Your technology seems rather basic. How can you possibly help us?" A small smile crossed Walker's face. "Sometimes, Ambassador, the simple solutions are the best ones. We may not have quantum drives, but we know how to share power, how to adapt, how to solve problems with what we have. That's what humans do best." He turned to his crew. "Contact Earth Council. Priority 1. And get me Chief Engineer Thompson. We're going to need every bit of human ingenuity we can muster." As the Horizon's crew sprang into action, Walker looked back at the massive fleet of stranded ships. This would be humanity's first real test on the galactic stage, not with weapons or advanced technology, but with something far more important: their ability to help others in need. The race against time had begun. The meeting room aboard the ESS Horizon was packed with both human and Commonwealth representatives. Captain Walker watched as Ambassador Rose's hologram displayed the internal layout of their ships. The situation was worse than they had first thought. Our generation ships carry entire families, Rose explained, pointing to the massive residential sections. We have over 10,000 children aboard. The emergency systems were only designed to last a week. We've already been stranded for 5 days. Chief Engineer Thompson rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He was an older man with gray hair and hands roughened by years of practical work. Your quantum drives are impressive, but they're completely dead. No chance of a restart. None, replied one of the Commonwealth's senior engineers, Alan. His silver skin seemed to shimmer under the room's lights. The quantum storm drained the exotic particles we use for power. Without them, the drives are just metal boxes. Thompson nodded, pulling up the schematics of a Commonwealth ship on his tablet. But your life support systems, they can run on regular power, right? They're just out of juice. Correct, Alan said. But your ships are too small. You couldn't possibly generate enough energy to power even one of our smaller vessels. Walker noticed Thompson's eyes light up, the look he got when he saw a solution others had missed. Maybe not one ship, Thompson said. But what about all of them? The room fell quiet as Thompson walked to the main display. He pulled up an image of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've got 20 ships here now, more coming. Each one has a fusion reactor that's built to handle emergencies. If we link them together, a power chain, Walker finished the thought, like a bunch of batteries connected in series. Rose looked skeptical. You want to connect your ships directly to ours. The technology gap is exactly why this might work. Thompson interrupted politely. Your systems are so advanced, they're actually simpler in some ways. They'll accept any clean energy source. Our fusion reactors produce exactly that. Just raw, simple power. Walker stood up. Dr. Allen, what's your assessment? The chief scientist adjusted her glasses. The math works. It won't be enough to power their quantum drives, but it should be more than sufficient for life support and basic systems. The real challenge will be physically connecting everything. We'd need to modify our power distribution systems, Thompson added. Run cables through space. It'll be dangerous work. Allen, the Commonwealth engineer, looked troubled. Your people would risk spacewalks to help us. The asteroid field makes it extremely dangerous. Walker smiled. That's what humans do. We find a way. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Earth Council approved the rescue mission, and more ships were already on their way. Thompson led a team in modifying the Horizon's power systems, while Commonwealth engineers shared their technical data. The first test would be on one of their smallest ships. If it worked, they could scale up to the larger vessels. Walker stood at the observation window, watching his crews work. They had to wear special suits to protect them from radiation, as they ran massive power cables through space. One wrong move and they'd be crushed between asteroids or exposed to lethal energy discharges. Your people are quite remarkable, Rose said, joining him at the window. We thought, well, when we first scanned your ships. You thought we were primitive, Walker finished. Rose had the grace to look embarrassed. Yes, your technology seems so basic compared to ours. No quantum fields, no neural networks, no AI pilots, just machines and human operators. Sometimes the old ways work best, Walker replied. Humans learned long ago not to rely too heavily on any one type of technology. We keep backup systems for our backup systems. Redundancy isn't elegant, but it keeps people alive. A cheer went up from the engineering section. Thompson's voice came over the comm. Power transfer successful. The test ship's life support is back online. Relief washed over Rose's face, but Walker knew they couldn't celebrate yet. This was just one small ship. They had hundreds more to save, and time was running out. Captain, the sensor officer called out urgently. Long-range scanners are picking up quantum disturbances. We might have another storm heading this way. Walker's jaw tightened. The real challenge was just beginning. Time was running out. The incoming quantum storm made the asteroid field even more dangerous as rocks began to shift unpredictably. Inside the ESS Horizon's main engineering bay, Chief Thompson wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the power readings. "The small ships are working fine," he reported to Captain Walker. "But these bigger vessels need way more power than we thought. At this rate, we won't save them all before the storm hits." Walker looked at the massive Commonwealth ships through the viewing window. Each one held thousands of lives. What about the other Earth ships that just arrived? Even with 30 ships now, spreading the power so thin is risky. Thompson pointed to a diagram showing their power distribution network. "We're pushing our fusion reactors to 90% capacity. Go higher, and we risk meltdowns." Dr. Allen rushed into the room, her tablet displaying new calculations. "I think I found a way," she said, slightly out of breath. "The Commonwealth ships, they're connected to each other through emergency passages. We can use those." Thompson's eyes widened as he looked at her data. "Instead of powering each ship individually, we power one and let them share it through their own systems." Allen finished. "Their internal power grid is still intact." Walker turned to Ambassador Rose, who had been quietly listening. "Would it work?" The ambassador consulted with Allen, their engineer, in their native language for a moment. Yes, it could. But the power transfer would be slower. Some ships might lose life support before getting power. "Then we start with the ships that have the most children," Walker decided. His crew had already learned that Commonwealth children were more vulnerable to oxygen loss than adults. The next few hours were intense. Human engineers worked alongside Commonwealth technicians, connecting massive power cables in space. The asteroids made their work treacherous. Twice, emergency teams had to rescue workers who got trapped between shifting rocks. Inside the first large ship, Thompson supervised the power connection personally. The vessel's interior was huge, with ceilings that stretched up several stories. Commonwealth families watched from behind safety barriers as the humans worked. "Connections secure," Thompson reported through his comm. "Starting power transfer in 3, 2, 1. The huge ship's systems hummed to life. Lights flickered on throughout the massive structure. Children cheered as their artificial gravity returned to full strength. "It's working," Allen exclaimed, checking his instruments. "Power flow is stable. We can start transferring to the next ship in the chain." But then warning alarms blared across the human fleet. "Captain," the Horizon's sensor officer called. "The storm's approaching faster than expected. Energy readings are off the charts." Walker looked at the tactical display. They had restored power to less than a quarter of the Commonwealth fleet. "How long until it hits?" 4 hours, maybe less. Rose's silver skin had turned pale. "That's not enough time. The unpowered ships won't survive the storm. My people." Her voice trailed off. Walker was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to Thompson. "What if we went to 100% reactor output?" The chief engineer's face turned serious. "That's way beyond safety limits, Captain. We could lose our ships." "But would it work?" Thompson ran the numbers on his tablet. "Maybe, if we diverted all power, even from life support, kept just enough to survive. We might transfer enough energy fast enough. But one wrong move and our reactors go critical." Walker looked around the room at his crew. He didn't need to ask. Their faces showed they were willing to take the risk. "Ambassador," Walker said to Rose, "your people thought our technology was primitive. And maybe it is. But sometimes the simple solutions are the bravest ones." He opened a channel to all Earth ships. "This is Captain Walker. We're going to push our reactors to the limit. Each ship will maintain minimum life support only. Everything else goes to the Commonwealth vessels. This is volunteer only. Any ship that wants to pull back, now's the time." The responses came back immediately. Not a single human ship withdrew. Rose watched in amazement as the human crews began their most dangerous work yet. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "Why risk everything for strangers?" Walker smiled as he watched his people work. Because that's what makes us human. The quantum storm loomed closer, its purple-black clouds swirling through space like angry smoke. Inside the ESS horizon, red warning lights flashed as the ship's reactor strained at full power. The temperature in the corridors had risen to uncomfortable levels as they diverted cooling systems power to the rescue effort. "Reactor temperature critical," shouted an engineer. "We can't keep this up much longer." Captain Walker wiped sweat from his face. They'd managed to restore power to almost half the Commonwealth fleet, but it wasn't enough. The massive ships were sharing power through their emergency systems, but the process was painfully slow. "Status report," Walker called out to his bridge crew. "Not good," Dr. Allen replied, her voice tense. "The storm's affecting the asteroid field. Rocks are becoming unstable. We've already lost 3 power cables to collision damage." Chief Thompson's voice crackled over the comm from another Commonwealth ship. "Captain, we have another problem. The heat from our reactors is starting to affect our cable connections. We're getting power fluctuations." Walker looked at the tactical display. Dozens of Commonwealth ships still sat powerless, their life support systems failing. He could see escape pods launching from some of the unpowered vessels, families desperately trying to reach the powered ships before their air ran out. Ambassador Rose entered the bridge, her usual calm demeanor shaken. "Captain, we're losing too many people. The escape pods, not all of them are making it through the asteroid field." A sudden explosion rocked the fleet. One of the Earth ships had blown a power coupling, sending sparks and debris into space. Emergency crews rushed to contain the damage. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, "storm will hit in less than 2 hours." Thompson's voice came back over the comm. "Captain, I have an idea. It's crazy, but it might work." At this point, "Chief, I'll take crazy. The Commonwealth ships, their hulls are made of some kind of superconductive material. If we could run our power straight through their outer shells instead of using cables, that would be suicide." Allen, the Commonwealth engineer, interrupted. "The energy discharge would be visible for light years." "But would it work?" Walker pressed. There was a pause before Allen answered. "Yes. Theoretically, the power transfer would be nearly instant, but your crews would have to physically connect your ships to our hulls. One wrong move and the energy discharge would vaporize them." Walker looked around his bridge. The air was hot, systems were failing, and his people were exhausted. But he saw determination in every face. "How many suits do we have rated for high-energy work?" he asked. 7, Thompson replied. "But they're not designed for this kind of power." Walker made his decision. "I'm calling for volunteers. 7 people, 1 for each connection point. I'll take the first." "No, Captain," Thompson cut in. "You're needed on the bridge. I'll lead the team." Over the next 30 minutes, they prepared for what could be a suicide mission. 7 volunteers suited up in the highest-rated protective gear they had. The plan was simple but incredibly dangerous. They would create a direct power link between the human and alien ships, using the Commonwealth's hull as one giant conductor. In the airlock, Walker spoke to the volunteer team. "If this works, the power transfer should only take a few minutes. If it doesn't..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Thompson checked his suit one last time. "We all knew the risks when we signed up, Captain. Besides, what's a little deadly energy discharge between friends?" Some of the crew managed weak laughs at his attempt at humor. Walker gripped Thompson's shoulder. "Good luck, old friend." As the airlock opened, Walker returned to the bridge. On his screens, he could see the 7 volunteers moving through space toward their connection points. The quantum storm's edge was now visible to the naked eye, its energy tendrils reaching toward them like hungry fingers. "All volunteers in position," reported Dr. Allen. Walker took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "Begin power transfer on my mark," he ordered. 3, 2, 1. The space around them lit up like a newborn star. Blinding light filled space as energy surged through the Commonwealth ships' hulls. The 7 volunteers held their positions, their suits' sensors screaming warnings about the massive power flowing just inches from them. On the Horizon's bridge, everyone held their breath. Power transfer at 200% of predicted levels. Dr. Allen shouted over the alarms. The hull conductivity is better than we thought. Through the glare, Walker could see the Commonwealth ships lighting up one by one, far faster than before. The energy cascade moved through their fleet like a wave of hope. 3 minutes until storm impact, called the sensor officer. Thompson's strained voice came through the comm. Captain, suits aren't going to last much longer. Temperatures climbing fast. Walker watched the power transfer readings climb. They were so close. Hold position, Chief. Just another minute. Suddenly, one of the volunteers screamed over the comm. His suit had begun to melt, the protective layers failing under the intense energy field. Without thinking, Walker rushed to the airlock, grabbing an emergency suit. Captain, what are you doing? Rose called after him. My job, he replied, sealing his helmet. Keep the power flowing. Walker launched himself into space. The brightness was overwhelming, even through his suit's darkened visor. He could see the endangered crew member, Tom, his suit glowing red-hot. Using his suit's thrusters, Walker pushed through the energy field. The pain was immediate. Even through the emergency suit, he could feel the heat burning his skin. He reached Tom just as the other man's suit began to break apart. Gotcha. Walker grabbed Tom and fired his emergency transport beacon. The Horizon's automated system pulled them both back instantly, just as Tom's suit failed completely. Back on the bridge, Dr. Allen's voice rose with excitement. It's working. Power transfer to all ships at 80%, 90%, 100%. The Commonwealth fleet blazed with light, every ship now humming with power. Ambassador Rose's eyes were wide with amazement. I've never seen anything like this. Your people's bravery. Emergency teams, retrieve our volunteers. Walker ordered as he helped get Tom to medical. Everyone else, prepare for storm impact. The rescue teams moved fast, plucking the remaining volunteers from space. Their suits were damaged, but they were alive. Thompson was the last one in, his suit practically smoking. Did we do it? He asked weakly as medical teams helped him. Walker smiled. See for yourself. Through the viewport, they could see the entire Commonwealth fleet fully powered, their systems running at full capacity. Escape pods were being recovered, families reunited. The impossible had been achieved, but there was no time to celebrate. The quantum storm hit like a hammer, its energy washing over both fleets. The asteroid field became chaos, rocks smashing into each other as the storm's power affected their trajectories. All ships, emergency maneuvers, Walker ordered. Stay in formation. The next 10 minutes were intense. Both human and Commonwealth ships worked together, helping each other dodge the rain of asteroids. The storm's energy crackled around them, but with their power restored, the Commonwealth's shields held firm. When the storm finally passed, a cheer went up across both fleets. They had done it. Not a single ship was lost. In the Horizon's medical bay, Walker visited his injured crew. Despite their burns and injuries, they were all smiling. Worth it, Thompson said from his bed, giving a weak thumbs up. Ambassador Rose entered the medical bay, followed by several Commonwealth children. They carried small glowing crystals, their people's highest honor. Captain, Rose said, her voice full of emotion, we came to give these to our rescuers, but we found out something interesting. Do you know what our children are calling your people? Walker shook his head. The Lightbringers, she said softly. Because you brought back their power, their hope, their future. We will never forget this. Walker looked at his injured crew, at the grateful faces of the Commonwealth children, at the combined fleet floating safely in space. We just did what humans do, he said simply. We found a way. 1 week after the rescue, The combined fleet of human and Commonwealth ships moved through space together. The Earth ships had formed a protective circle around the larger alien vessels as they traveled toward the nearest Commonwealth starbase. In the Horizons conference room, Captain Walker sat with Ambassador Rose and representatives from both fleets. The mood was light, despite the serious discussion taking place. "Our scientists are still amazed," Alan said, showing holographic data of the rescue operation. "You turned our entire fleet into one giant power conductor. It shouldn't have worked, but it did." Thompson, still wearing bandages but back on duty, grinned. "Sometimes the craziest ideas are the best ones. Though I wouldn't recommend trying it again anytime soon." A young Commonwealth engineer named Maya spoke up. She had been working closely with the human crews since the rescue. "We've been studying your fusion reactors. They're so different from what we use. Simple, yes, but incredibly reliable." "That's humanity for you," Dr. Allen said. "We learned long ago not to put all our eggs in one basket. Different backup systems, multiple power sources." "Speaking of power," Walker added, "how are the quantum drives coming along?" Rose's expression turned serious. "That's actually why we called this meeting. Our drives are still inactive. Without the exotic particles we use for fuel, we can't make the jump to our starbase. The journey at normal speed would take years." The room fell quiet. The Commonwealth ships were running on human-provided power, but that was a temporary solution. They needed their quantum drives back. Thompson studied the drive schematics on his tablet. "These particles you need, how are they usually made?" "In special facilities near black holes," Allen explained. "The gravitational forces help create them. But the nearest facility is several systems away." Walker noticed Thompson's expression, that familiar look when he had an idea. "What are you thinking, Chief?" "Well," Thompson stood up and walked to the main display. "We can't make exotic particles, but what if we could simulate the conditions that create them?" He pulled up the schematics of the human fleet's fusion reactors. "If we modified all our reactors to work together, created a massive gravitational field." "That's impossible," Allen interrupted. "You'd need the gravity of a small star." "Exactly," Thompson smiled. "And what do our fusion reactors basically do? They copy the conditions inside a star." The next few hours were filled with intense discussion and calculations. The plan was audacious. They would arrange the human ships in a precise pattern, modify their reactors to work in sync, and attempt to create a temporary artificial gravity, well strong enough to generate the needed particles. "The risk is enormous," Dr. Allen warned. "One miscalculation, and we could create a runaway reaction." But Walker saw the hope in the Commonwealth representative's eyes. These people needed to get home. "How long to make the modifications?" he asked Thompson. 2 days, maybe 3. Every ship will need to be perfectly synchronized." Walker looked at Rose. "Your scientists said our technology was primitive. Want to help us prove them wrong one more time?" The next 3 days were a blur of activity. Human and Commonwealth engineers worked side by side, modifying the fusion reactors. The Earth ships moved into a complex formation, positioning themselves with precise calculations. On the day of the attempt, Walker stood on his bridge, watching the final preparations. Every human ship would be pushing their reactors far beyond safe limits, but not a single crew had hesitated to volunteer. "All ships report ready, Captain," his officer reported. Walker opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Captain Walker. What we're about to try has never been done before. If it works, we'll have helped our new friends get home. If it doesn't..." He paused. "Well, it's been an honor serving with all of you." He looked at Thompson, who stood at the engineering station. "Ready when you are, Chief." Thompson took a deep breath. "Beginning reactor synchronization. All ships, on my mark." Through the viewport, Walker could see the other Earth ships glowing as their reactors powered up. They were about to find out if humanity's primitive technology could perform one final miracle. 3, 2, 1, Mark. Space itself seemed to bend as 30 human ships fired their modified fusion reactors in perfect sync. The energy output was unlike anything ever recorded, creating a miniature artificial gravity well between their vessels. On the Horizon's bridge, alarms blared as systems strained under the pressure. "Gravity field stable," Dr. Allen called out. "Reading increased particle activity in the target zone." Thompson worked furiously at his station, his bandaged hands flying over the controls. "We need to hold it steady for another 30 seconds. Come on, come on." Through the viewport, they could see strange lights dancing in the space between their ships. The Commonwealth vessels waited anxiously, their massive forms dark against the stars. Particle density increasing. Allen reported from his station. "It's actually working. The conditions are almost perfect for." A massive surge of energy rippled through the fleet. For a moment, everything went white. When the light faded, Walker saw countless tiny points of light floating in space, exotic particles created by human determination and ingenuity. "Collection systems active," Rose announced, her voice filled with awe. "We're gathering the particles now." One by one, the Commonwealth ships began powering up their quantum drives. The huge vessels hummed with renewed energy as their advanced systems came back online. "All ships, power down reactors," Walker ordered. "Careful and controlled shutdown." As the human fleet powered down, exhausted crews watched in amazement as the Commonwealth ships lit up with their full power. What had seemed impossible just days ago had become reality through human persistence and creativity. Later, in the Horizon's main hall, both fleets gathered for a farewell ceremony. Ambassador Rose stood before the assembled crews, her silver skin glowing under the lights. "When we first encountered your fleet," she began, "we thought you primitive. Your ships were simple, your technology basic. We were wrong. You showed us that true advancement isn't just about having the most sophisticated technology." She gestured to the human crews. "You showed us that innovation, bravery, and the willingness to help others are the true marks of an advanced civilization. You risked everything to save strangers, using creativity and courage where others might have given up." Walker stood next to Thompson as Rose continued. "The Commonwealth hereby extends an official invitation for Earth to join our alliance. We have much to learn from each other." Cheers erupted from both human and Commonwealth crews. Walker looked around at his people, burned, tired, but proud. They had done what everyone said was impossible, not once but twice. Additionally, Rose added with a smile, "We would like to establish a joint engineering academy. Our technology combined with human innovation and problem-solving could benefit both our peoples." Thompson grinned. "Just wait until they see what we can do with proper tools." The next day, as the Commonwealth fleet prepared to depart, Walker stood in his ready room with Rose and Thompson. Through the window, they could see Earth ships and Commonwealth vessels exchanging crews, the first teams of engineers who would work together at the new academy. "You know," Rose said, "our children have started telling stories about the rescue. They call it, 'The Daylight Came Back.' You've become legends among our people." Walker shook his head modestly. "We just did what needed to be done." "That's exactly what makes humans special," Rose replied. "You see what needs to be done, and you find a way to do it, no matter how impossible it seems." The Commonwealth fleet departed in a spectacular display of quantum energy, jumping away to their home system. The human ships watched them go, their simple but reliable fusion drives humming steadily. As the Horizon set course for Earth, Walker looked at his crew on the bridge. They had changed the galaxy's view of humanity, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through determination, creativity, and the willingness to help others. "Message from Earth Command, Captain," his communications officer called out. "They're asking what we learned from this mission." Walker smiled, thinking of everything that had happened. "Tell them we learned what we've always known, that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our machines or our technology. It's in our spirit, our creativity, and our determination to find a way forward, no matter the odds. The horizon turned toward home, carrying with it the story of humanity's first great contribution to the galactic community, not as conquerors or warriors, but as inventors, problem solvers, and friends.